In this part 2 episode of our interview with Diane Calderon, we're going to be listening to the audio very closely because we noticed a lot of audio anomalies and a lot of visual disturbances through this episode. So please stay tuned. It's pretty exciting on this week's Back to Paranormal. Well, hello, and welcome back to Back to Paranormal. Yep. Hi.
I wanted to say it with...
Oh, you could say, okay, so, you say who you are, and then I'll say who I am.
I'm Marjorie.
It's Marjorie. How you doing, Marjorie? You're so beautiful today.
Thank you.
You're always beautiful. You know that.
It's because I'm smiling at you.
I'm always smiling at you. And my name is Brian Mitchell, and, well, we're here. And if you haven't listened to the podcast before, we talk about a lot of different things, spiritual stuff and ghosts and Bigfoot and...
things that go bump in the night.
Lots of stuff that goes bump in the night. And we've done a UFO episode, and but it's primarily a spiritual show, I think. We talk about things that happen to real people, to us.
I feel that way, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a fun show, and we're not trying to scare anybody, but, basically there are stories, there are things that happen on the show that are very weird sometimes, and I think you're in it really in for today, because there's a lot of voice, it sounds like voices, vocal anomalies, let's just say it's audio anomalies. Once we start talking about Diane Calderon's son who passed away, and we kind of acknowledge him in the show, and then all of a sudden these blips and pieces,
little blip, blip. Yeah, and nothing that we've ever had before.
Right. Plus, there've been when we do these shows, it's basically they're on a Zoom call. Most of the time, sometimes we do them in person, and the Zoom calls are fine. But we're looking at the screen. We're both looking at the screen, and there were some weird visual disturbances going on during this whole thing, especially when Diane mentions her son.
Yeah,
and
the brightness on her screen just goes way up.
Yeah, and I mean she's basically not in a totally dim room, it's there's some light there, but it's not a bright room. And then all of a sudden it's just like she starts talking about her son, and then the light shifts.
Yeah.
And
it's in a moderately lit room.
Yeah.
But then the light is coming on the equipment.
Right. And it's just it feels like energy. It just feels like this energetic burst.
And what was really interesting was that when I really didn't start hearing in my headset as we were recording, as we were talking with her,
right,
until kind of the latter half of the interview.
Right.
And after we were all done and we had said our goodbyes, I said to you, you're going to think I'm crazy. Mm-hmm. But I was hearing these weird interferences.
Yes.
And you said, yes, I heard it too. And I was wondering where it was from. Then when we listened back, we had to listen very, very carefully.
Right.
And the crazy thing is that when you started telling Diane about the brightness on her end, with every mention of her son, was the first time that you actually hear the blip coming into the recording.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear it then, but I heard it when we listened back. And we listened back very, very carefully, and we got a whole bunch of timestamps to kind of figure it out, what is being said.
Right.
But when we listened back carefully is when you said, Diane, there's a point where you tell her the brightness is going up. Mm-hmm. And I bet if we listen back very carefully, we will hear some things. Mm-hmm. And then that is when it started.
That's when it started. Isn't that freaky? That's really freaky.
That's what's amazing about you. You have a sense of things.
I have a sense of knowing.
I hadn't heard anything up until after that started happening.
And then all of a sudden it just started happening. Mm-hmm. And it was. I've said before. I think I don't think I'm like a psychic or a psychic medium. I think I have sensitivity.
Oh, very
to
much.
that, and it's. I find that interesting that we had Jennifer Ann on, who's a psychic medium, and she kept saying, "There's something about you. There's something about you," and which maybe there is something. I don't know.
I believe that there is.
You do you?
I do, because that first one, you said, I have a feeling when we listen back to the recording, there's a voice in there, and I swear it interrupts and it says, "Mom."
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me. All the other ones I can't make any sense of.
Right.
Can we discuss what we're...
Oh, okay. Well, we do this in every show, and we have a little beverage, and most of the time it's like a beer or a cocktail or something like that. But we welcome you to grab your own drink, whether it's a tea or a soda pop or a glass of water. Because a glass of water can be very spiritual, right?
That is true.
So today we're
Sody pop. Do you know how goofy you sound when you say sody pop?
Sody pop.
I've never heard anybody.
I think down south. I hope somebody corrects me if I'm wrong, but they just call it pop.
That's Midwest.
Oh well, okay. Okay, so you corrected me. But
it got so cold today and so blustery, so I made a pot of mulled apple cider.
Now, this is because we're in November. We're getting very close to the holidays, and I said we should have something moldy, and you said, "How about?"
Well, it makes the house smell like the holidays.
It does.
I really like it's comforting.
So what do you put? Okay, so it's apples.
All the apple cider, Hudson River Valley apple cider.
Plug. Yeah.
Just a whole stick of cinnamon, cloves, star anise, allspice, all the warming,
all the good stuff,
all the warming, yummy spices that you associate.
And if you want to spike, what can you spike this up with to make it more spiritual?
The spirit that I think goes best with I don't know when I have it's usually like a spiced rum or a dark rum.
Okay. All right. So you can just it's delicious without that
itself.
Yeah. But we're not doing that tonight. We're just having straight apple cider.
That's boop.
Moldy.
Boop.
Oh.
I want to have a sip.
Here we go.
Taste.
Here we go.
I have to be very careful because last weekend we were shopping and we stopped at a farm stand and they had some and it was so hot I ruined my tongue.
Oh, you destroyed it.
I did.
Yeah.
I removed my my sweet zone for.
You forgot that it was like molten lava going down.
No, I gave it a good 20 minutes, and I thought now's my chance, and I dove in and I removed my whole sweet zone.
And it holds the heat pretty well.
It does.
Well, this is really good.
It's good.
I'm going to be sipping on this all night.
I made it just for you.
Well, thank you so much. So there you go. Anyway, hot apple cider and cinnamon and all those wonderful spices. And
warming spices.
There you go. And, taste of the season.
It is the taste of it. It's nice. It makes you feel cozy.
Yeah.
You can listen to some spooky story. No, her story isn't spooky.
Like with Back to Paranormal. Just go back. We're almost hitting the 30 episode mark. Can you believe it? I don't believe it. We're really getting close. We started this as fun. We're like, let's do it. And now it's just a chore. No. We really enjoy doing these shows. It is fun. Yeah. And we have fans and everything. People are listening to us. Fandom. Yeah. So anyway. If you want to be a hit with your friends, tell them about Back to Paranormal. Without further ado. Oh, we're going to listen to the show now? We're going to listen to the interview. Yes. Oh. I thought I would take and introduce it just to get things moving. I think you should introduce it. Without further ado, part 2 of our talk with the amazing Diane Calderon. Yes, please enjoy. I got to tell you, because of we're looking at you. We're on a Zoom call. We're in New York, and Diane's in Arizona, and so this is being recorded through Zoom, and I have and I don't know why I think this is going to happen, because we're going to have to review the audio. But I have a feeling like when we said, hi, Matthew, mm-hmm. I wonder if we're going to hear something on the playback. Mm-hmm. And if we do, we'll let you know about it. But, yeah, because they can... My father manipulated an answering machine message from me and stuck his name multiple times and stuck his name over my name, which freaked me out. I listened to it. I was like, this is impossible. But I think in the spiritual world, I think in the world of energy, I think anything is possible. So the fact that we saw the light anomalies happen, mm-hmm. and unfortunately we're not recording the actual Zoom call. We're recording the audio on a separate device. We don't have that documented, and I feel bad that we didn't, because we could have actually use that and shown it, just to, as proof. But we're going to listen back to this audio recording. We're going to listen back to it very, very carefully, and we'll let you know. We'll let you know if we hear, your son. Your son might communicate. He might say something like hi, or I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. That would be really cool to be able to play that back and see if you can pick up something.
Yeah.
I'll just say that 3 or 4 years after he had passed, I had gotten involved with a group of people who, like-minded, were, learning about mediumship and trying to develop our skills. Mm-hmm. And some of the other members in the group were, like me, parents who'd lost their kids. And so the group decided to do like an online mediumship kind of a circle. Mm-hmm. And we were recording it on Zoom. So we do a circle, and then, few people are getting a few messages and some stuff's coming in. Mm-hmm. Later, when we replayed the Zoom recording, we were picking up these weird sounds like here and there.
Right.
So we reached out to somebody that can analyze those EVPs, an electronic voice phenomenon. Mm-hmm. We sent them the recording, and they were able to analyze it with whatever their equipment was. And they came back with a list of like 12 instances where it sounded like our kids, and it seemed like it was various kids, mm-hmm. were giving information through this voice EVP stuff, this recording. And the very last message was so clear. It's like, we love our moms, was the clearest one of all. Wow. So as we're doing the recordings and we're doing the session, we're not hearing this. It was that audio that picked up that weird anomaly. Our moms.
Hey, what about the dads?
Yeah, what about the dads?
Yeah.
Wow. I like that.
Yeah.
It is comforting. I mean, yes, we love our loved ones and we want them here mm-hmm. with us. I mean, Brian leaves the house and I'm I'm sad in tears. But the fact that they are still connected to us through this channel, this very strong, undying channel of love. Mm-hmm. is amazing. It's amazing. And it's so comforting. And I do feel that it helps us to live a less fearful life. I have a very, very dear friend of mine whom I absolutely think the world of her, and I cherish her, but we're not of the same religion, and I don't believe we have the same, beliefs. We do a lot of things, the core stuff, like be good, but she lives such a fearful life, and it's everything, and she indulges these fears, and there's so many times when I wish I could just say to her, there's so much in my heart that I wish that I could share with you, and it's not just what I think or what I feel. I know you don't have to be so afraid all the time. of
Yeah.
everything. You know, you're terrified of living and you're scared of dying. But baby, you got to pick one. I say let's just try to live our life without fear. A lot of scary things happen and tragic things happen.
I don't think you should be scared of either one. I don't think you should be scared of living, and I don't think you should be scared of dying.
I don't want her to. I would rather she didn't have either. But she's hell bent on indulging some. But there's so much I wish I could share. I just don't think that it would be fully accepted because that's just
she has to be the one to change her mindset.
Own. But all of these things, like the book that we discussed, the Hello from Heaven, and the book by Eben Alexander and his his near-death experience, and so many things that we've read and that really give you so much comfort. And while you're alive here for this brief moment, it can unleash so much where you can, like you said, live and love every single day.
When you started having these experiences, did you start seeking out some of these books, like the Guggenheim's book, the After Death, Hello from Heaven, which is a great book.
Oh, it's wonderful.
With all these all these different stories. Did you go through that first, and then to try to validate your experiences?
Yes, I did. Because I was having so many different little experiences, it intrigued me. And, my background before I had retired for many years, I was a research analyst
Oh, okay.
for state of Arizona. And, I have a master's degree in research and sociology. So I'm a researcher, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a scientist in some ways. So
Sure.
when something weird is happening, I want to know, what does it mean and what's behind it and how do you prove it?
Right.
So yeah, I read and read and read whatever I could get my hands on. And I had time because I'm stuck here at home for a while,
Sure.
taking care of my husband. I couldn't take him places. We were beyond that.
Right.
My husband died 2 years after my son, but in that time, I had a lot of time on my hands. So
Sure.
yeah, I read just anything I could get my hands on. I'd get it on Kindle or, purchase it from Amazon so I could get it out of the mailbox and what have you.
Have you?
So yeah, a lot of good books, but a lot of them were more focused on mediumship in the early part.
Right. Right.
And they helped me a lot. I stumbled into a book about a little over a year after Matt had died, that made me think about things in a little different light. And it was a book by a medium named Suzanne Giesemann, who wrote Wolf's Message. And Giesemann has a lot of books, but The Wolf's Message was really touching me because it was the story of a young man who had died unexpectedly.
Right.
But he seemed to have predicted that death
Right.
in his life
Mm.
and led Giesemann on an interesting quest to find out more about him, as she had contact with his parents over a period of time. And so it made me really wonder and think, well, wow, this young man was really able to reach out to his parents and connect them with a medium and cause a lot of healing, and through the book reach a lot of people. It was reaching me, and it made me more intrigued in learning about the afterlife and mediumship. So after my husband had died, I was free to then, go about the country, as they say. I was able to go and take some classes and workshops and things, and I began to meet other people and learn a whole lot more about the afterlife and various aspects. Matthew led me to some of the best teaching one could ever have, fortunately. And the way that worked, it started with my knowing Giesemann. I had taken some workshops, and she had reached out to me at one point and asked if I wanted a reading with her, and I was able to get one on Mother's Day, no less.
Wow.
And she connected right away with my husband. So he'd been gone for a few months at that point. And she kind of closed up with, I hope that's what you wanted. And I said, well, being that it's Mother's Day, I thought my son would come in. And she's like, oh, you have a son in spirit? And I said, yeah. Well, let me see. And at first he wasn't coming forward. And she said, I'm sorry, maybe we can try again another time. And so we said goodbye. And a few minutes later, she's calling me back. Okay, your son came in and said he didn't want to be didn't want my mom to think that I had forgotten her on Mother's Day.
Right.
So he had come right back and said, okay. And then he gave her a lot of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So she was familiar with my son. Many months later, about a little over a year after my husband died, I was going through a hard time because, grief will do that. I've lost my son. I've lost my husband. It's been over a year. I thought I knew everything and I haven't.
Right.
I'm still, feeling the grief and I need to move forward. I get a call again from Geisman, just a random call, I thought, asking if I knew someone named Suzanne Wilson, who's a medium in Arizona. And I said, well, I know of her. I know she's involved with helping parents heal. I'd seen her present
Mm-hmm.
at one of their meetings, but I don't really know her. Well, she's looking for a part-time assistant, and I know you're interested in this. You had taken some workshops with me, and I thought of you.
Wow.
I said, me? And she
Wow.
said, yeah. I said, yeah, I'd kind of be interested if I can work from home. I don't want to be, driving down to the Phoenix area to do any kind of work. I want to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's all, over the computer. I'm like, okay. So a little bit later, Suzanne Wilson calls me, and Suzanne Wilson says, oh, yeah, my assistant is retiring. I'm looking for somebody who can do the work, 10, 15 hours a week,
Mm-hmm.
handling clients, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I think I could probably do that. And she says, and I understand you know a little bit about mediumship. And I said, yeah, I've taken a little bit of classes and I've read an awful lot and I've had some readings. So yeah,
Yeah.
sure, I'd love to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Suzanne Wilson says, well, I didn't know where to go to find somebody. And so I called my friend and Suzanne Giesman. And when I hung up, put the phone down and my ceiling fan kicked on. And I'm looking at it and I'm looking at my husband, and the remote for the fan is sitting on a table in front of us. And we're like, why is that fan going?
Mm-hmm.
And she felt like, well, somehow she was getting an answer to her quest to find somebody.
Right.
But I told her, well, that's probably my son. And she goes, your son? And I said, yeah, my son is in spirit and he plays with the ceiling fans at my house. In fact, he installed the ceiling fans in the house. And when his girlfriend has been here to visit, or some of the family members or friends, and we're like in one of the rooms talking about him, or I'm on the phone talking to them about him, a fan will kick on. Just boom. And
Unbelievable.
Suzanne Wilson says, okay, okay, hold on. She says, all right, let me see. Okay, that's your son. I see him now. He's standing next to you. He has his hand on your shoulder and he says, yeah, yeah, I did that.
Wow.
So my son, I just know, was sitting there watching me go through this grief, feeling
Mm-hmm.
sorry for myself and wondering, where am I going to go? What am I going to do with my life? I don't have these animals to take care of except the dogs.
Right.
I'm just sitting here in rural Arizona being bored to death and missing you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so my son planted the seeds of, well, we'll find mom a job. And he
Wow.
did it by, working, I guess, through Geisman and Wilson together.
Yeah.
Wilson, needs someone, and
I
Matthew
know.
drops in on
I'm looking
Geisman
up
like,
at our ceiling fan.
We're looking at our ceiling fan, which is right above us.
did it kick on? Come on,
No,
man. So
not
it
yet.
might.
Not yet.
So,
If it
he
kicks on,
made those connections.
if it kicks on, I'll let you know.
Of course we'll.
Okay. If I see your hair going, I'll go, yeah. So
I'll grow
he
hair,
made
and
those
then it will stand
connections.
on. Yeah.
So, what resulted is I started kind of a new career working for Suzanne Wilson. And in working for her, yeah, it's part-time, but it's become a very great collaboration in some ways, because I understand what she's doing and I can understand how to explain it to clients or people who are wondering how mediumship works.
Right.
She often would give classes on building up your psychic skills and intuition abilities and eventually mediumship. And because I work for her, she said, well, go ahead and take the classes. They're all online
Mm-hmm.
or they're at the office. Come on in and, there's no charge. You're my employee. So I took advantage of it. And through her mentorship and
Mm-hmm.
guidance, I learned how to do mediumship.
Wow.
And I think I had mentioned before to you, maybe not to your listeners, I wasn't born a psychic medium.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't something that I thought I would ever be, wanting to do. I really didn't know a whole lot about mediums until after my son had died. And I,
Right.
began to look for answers. But through her training and her mentorship and work, I mean, you practice, practice, practice. You do multiple practice readings and you work with students and you do development circles, I was able to do mediumship. I am able to do mediumship. It's not something that I'm doing yet as professionally, but I'm like on the edge of that.
Wow.
Right.
Suzanne Wilson has been encouraging me to get out there and start making a mark, and I keep kind of pushing back, but I see it's coming. I will be doing mediumship.
That is amazing. You know, we do speak to psychic mediums a lot, and and some of them really just say we're all born with this. We all have this.
Yeah.
But we rely on language. It's like you grow up in a house where your father speaks German and your mother speaks English or Spanish, and your school speaks English. You're going to have 3 languages if they consistently. But, you know, we rely on our conventional language to communicate, you know, here in this physical plane.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's something that doesn't get exercised. You're very sensitive, and you always kind of have the lay of the land.
A lay of the
Brian.
land. The fan's still not moving over here, so I don't know. We'd probably be jumping out the window here.
And 2 degrees. Like some people have it more than others. Like I always wanted to have telekinetic powers. I still dream of it. And I'm like, well, if Carrie White had it.
Yeah.
Then,
oh boy.
Doggone it. What about me? And usually it's just sitting on the sofa and I can't reach the remote control.
Yeah, so you're trying to will it into your hands.
I try to will it.
Jeez. One day it will happen.
One day. No, it will.
One day it will happen.
It will.
One day we'll just
use
fly.
the force.
The force.
Oh my God. I believe that
there are people.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are people that are born with the psychic abilities that are a little bit stronger and easier for them. I think.
Definitely.
You know, working with Suzanne Wilson, you know, she talks about seeing, you know, spirit people when she was young, and you know, not knowing how to control that. She says, yeah, I'd go to school and I might say, oh, I see your grandmother's here, and then get in trouble. Because, you know, there's no grandmother here. What are you talking about?
Right.
And she was fortunate in that she had a grandfather that's told her, I can see them too. And so the grandfather helped her understand that ability.
Right.
And allow her to accept it. And then, you know, as she grew up, she put it aside, and then it came back at a later point to where she became
thank goodness,
a medium.
Yeah, thank goodness she had that, because we spoke to another girl, and she said that she had a miserable life growing up because it was so unaccepted in her household, and she felt like such a freak, and she was made to feel like she was doing
the devil's work,
satanic arts or something, and she was the sweetest girl too, you know. Very lonely place to be for a child.
Do you still, are there certain symbols that you get from Matthew still, or your husband? Do you certain things, like with me, it's always numbers, and because my father's birthday pops up, it's always 313 or 333, which is the month and year or month and day. And, you know, she'll text me, and she'll be texting me at 313, not even looking at the time. And then I will see the text and I'll respond, but I'll respond at 333. And not planned, and it's always an after thing. It's always like
very strange.
It's like, boy, this is weird. Or she'll call me at 313, not realizing the time, and it's kind of a wild thing that happens. Those numbers keep popping up. I mean, I'll go and order something at a drive-through, and I'll get the ticket number, and it will say 333 or 313. And it's just not the time; it's just the number of the order, you know. So, just really all the time.
It's fascinating. It happens
every day.
So often.
So often. Happened today.
And there are times when I'll call him, and he'll say, "Do you know what time it is?" And I'm like, "Sure, it's 3:13." Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So do you ever get stuff like that, or are there, you know, do you still see like Blue Jays or
Yeah, I get the numbers a lot, and the 4 is a big number. My son was born in April, so, you know, the fourth month.
Right.
But for some reason, I've associated four also with my husband. So the two of them, if I see 44444, I'll get it as a time thing. I'll see it on a license plate.
Right.
And, I might be thinking about one of them and then a car will go by and like, oh, there's a 444.
Right.
Or I'll get a phone call. Like you said, that's a number that's big for me, 444.
Right.
My son's birthday is the 6th of April, so 46 or 406
Right.
is a big one. It'll pop up.
Right.
Their names pop up a lot.
Yeah.
And that'll surprise me. I might be watching a program on television, and I don't know the plot or the characters so much, but
Right.
at some point, I'll think, oh, this next character's name is, Sal. And sure enough, oh, here's Sal. And it's like, how did I get that? Or Matt. Matt's a big name.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, here's our chef, Matt. And it's like, okay, you guys, you're around. A few months ago, I was with a friend and we were driving down to Phoenix and I was telling her about the numbers, the 444. And she says, really? You get that a lot? And I said, yeah. And then she looked out and she says, look, Diane, and there's a license plate that's 444.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I said, see, there's one there. And then a little bit later, a truck goes by and the license plate says Salazar. And she says, Diane, look, there's Sal's name. And I said, see, I told you.
Yeah. It happens.
They just kind of pop up into your awareness. It's just weird. Matt's name, it's a little more popular than Sal, but I'll see it a lot too.
Sure.
On plates, programs, whatever.
Wow.
The birds are a big thing. Oh man, they're amazing.
Yeah.
The bluebird. Okay, so I don't get bluebirds that often, but after I saw that first flock, they were here every year, every winter. The bluebirds were here. I've got pictures of them,
Wow.
except this past winter. They did not come at all this past winter. Don't know why. Have no clue why.
Right.
They were not here. I think maybe it's because I got the book written. And Matt's like, okay, we're done with that. Let's go on to something else.
Right.
I get blue jays now and then. In fact, the first Christmas after Matthew had died, and I'm, again, feeling sorry for myself. And I wake up that morning and I'm like, oh God, first Christmas without Matt. And this is just so hard. And, you have those memories of your prior Christmases and how cool that was. And I'm looking out the window and there's a flock of birds eating these berries on this bush that are out there. They're just regular birds. But my attention got drawn to a little bit to the side of this bush was a blue jay. A beautiful blue jay. And he's looking, sideways and not noticing the birds so much. And I'm like, oh my God, that's beautiful. Oh, Matt, did you send me that as a Christmas gift? And as soon as I thought it, the blue jay looked at me.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that's the greatest
Western
gift.
Western blue jays.
Flew
Western blue jays are magnificent. They're not like the ones we have up here.
In the eastern part of the country.
They're beautiful. They're big.
Just want to let you know, every time you mention your son, the screen gets really bright, and then it takes a while for it to fade back to. I mean, you can still see you. It's just it's almost like the room fills with
light.
Yeah, It's pretty amazing.
I think he's excited. He's around a lot, and there's other birds. There's hawks. I stepped out. I was talking to somebody about some classes I was preparing to do, because I'm starting to teach now, and stepped outside as I'm talking, and this beautiful white-gray hawk flew right in front of me.
Wow.
And I'd never seen a white-gray hawk here before. I see red tails and I see, other species. But this thing was like, holy cow, I wished I'd had my camera out to, snap a shot and, prove that this guy flew by. My husband sends hawks a lot. When he passed, he sent a hawk right in front of me as I was on the phone with one of his family members telling them what had happened.
Wow.
And I'm looking out the window and this beautiful hawk flew right by. And it's like, oh, wow. So,
is there any particular story, like one particular story that may stand out after Matthew or your husband passed away that just seemed absolutely weird but wonderful? Can you think of one that's?
There's a few, but the one I kind of like to tell is before my husband passed. Okay, so, he's declining. He's in dementia. He's on hospice. I have him at home. And he's sometimes here and he's sometimes not. But at one point, he was kind of, aware of we're around and we're talking, and he's telling me that Matthew, who of course has been gone for about a year and a half at that point,
Mm-hmm.
that Matthew had come to visit him.
Hmm.
And Matthew had come with his mother, being my husband's mother. Well, I never met his mom. She died in the 50s,
Right.
and
Right.
Matthew, of course, never got to meet her. But I thought that was really cool that Sal is saying, well, his mother is here with Matthew. They came to say hi.
Mm-hmm.
At another point, he says to me, Matthew came and he told me that he's learning how to help people when they die.
Right.
And I
Oh,
said, oh, Matthew told you he's learning this? And he says, yeah, he told me that when I die, that he's going to be there to help me. He's still learning it. So somebody is going to help him through that, but he's learning how to help people when they die. So I
Wow.
thought that
Wow.
was a remarkable sign. I
wow.
Yeah.
know that hospice people would tell me, "Oh, they're hallucinating. They don't know what they're
No,
talking
No,
about."
no,
that's
no,
pretty.
But
no,
I
no, no.
know.
That's
I
pretty
know.
lucid. That's pretty lucid. Yeah.
Particularly because
Mm-hmm.
the angel band came to take him up so instantaneously.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
they were waiting to just catch him
Yeah.
like
Pluck them
this.
up. Yeah.
That's what.
Wow. Wow. No, I find that to be incredibly lucid. When, there are people that believe, like, if somebody's suffering from dementia or any other, Parkinson's, whatever,
Mhm.
they believe that the body is just a vessel, that the brain, the physical brain, is just this way of communicating. It's receiving information from the material world, and then it's trying to interpret that, and then and basically you kind of send it through the same way, but you still have a spirit there. The spirit's intact. It's just the body is messed up. The mind is messed up. The physical mind is messed up. So it's almost like a game of telephone,
Mhm.
where somebody hears something, and because it's not being interpreted the right way, it's spilling it into it's incorrectly delivering the message from the outer world, and so it doesn't know how to send that back, but the spirit itself is intact. I know I'm messing
Mhm.
this up
Mhm.
I
as far
don't
as
think so.
but I think you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, that's what I'm saying. It's like, when you pass, you're perfect. You know, your faculties, everything is perfect, and you're whole again. You know. So, how do you feel about that? Do you agree with that, or
Absolutely. I agree
yeah?
completely with that. In some ways, I've heard it expressed in different terms, but
Mm-hmm.
the body is basically a vessel for the soul.
Yeah.
And of course, the body has the wiring, for the brain to process things and for the nerves to react to things.
Mm-hmm.
People in dementia, like I think it was Lewy body's dementia, there's something going on in the brain where things are getting blocked, so they're not able to comprehend things clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a physiological aspect. But the soul is always perfect. The soul is complete. The soul is an energetic, living, limitless being. It's you. It's who you are. It's your special frequency.
Right.
And so that soul exists in the body. And from some of the things I have read and what I have felt is that, for instance, with my husband, that as he was drawing closer to passing over, his soul was already leaving the body, but not completely. There was still an element of him still attached to the body,
Mm.
Right.
but it was already participating in things on the other side. That's why it was easier for him to see,
Mm-hmm.
his relatives over there or his family and friends. But there was still a part of his soul in the body at one
Right.
point. Just an hour or so before he passed. I don't know why I did this. It was kind of bizarre on my end because my husband was a very proud man and I'll say, very handsome fellow who would have
Mm-hmm.
been horrified to know that I wanted to take a video of him in his last, moments because he looked pretty sad. I mean, he was in bad shape.
Yeah.
But something inspired me for whatever reason to take a little video. And so I videoed him and, it's a close up and he's breathing, et cetera, et cetera. And it was just a short clip, maybe ran for a minute or so.
Right.
And then I turned it off. It's like, I don't know why I did that. Okay, but I've got it.
Hmm.
Months later, I'm looking at that video clip again, and something occurred on that video which caught my interest. And I have shared it with a handful of people who were mediums
Hmm.
and asked what they thought. And here was the interpretation. As you watch the video, you see him, and he's just kind of laying there, and he's starting to breathe a little oddly.
Right.
What happened is his coloring changed,
Hmm.
and he was like glowing, and then it became a deep purple, and it was almost like this color just moved through him and moved through his neck and through his head, and then it went. Now,
Wow.
I'm not seeing it when I'm recording it
Right.
because I'm paying attention to what I'm doing and feeling guilty about it. But when you see the video, you see this color change. And everyone who has watched it has said that's his soul moving through the body and getting ready to exit.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was
Wow.
clearing out
Mm-hmm.
those chakras, and it was going,
Mm-hmm.
getting ready for release. So I
Wow.
thought that was really remarkable. And I'm pretty convinced at that point that maybe his soul told me, hey, take a little video clip because it's going to be important to you at a later point.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even though you feel guilty, it's
Mm.
important to
Yeah.
know this.
Mm-hmm.
Diane, I want to thank you for doing this interview, and it's been a really good interview. And
Thank you.
we sense that Matt's been here listening, and because every time you mentioned his name, even the last couple of minutes, the screen just went, just almost white. We could still see you, and then it just started to fade.
I haven't seen that happen.
I've never seen that
before.
happen. I've done a lot of these interviews. I have two podcasts. I have one about animated cartoons. I'm a cartoonist, and we've done a few for the Back to Paranormal podcast, and never ever had that happen. Never had these, especially around saying your son's name. So clearly it seems like he's here. It looks like he's here. The book.
Living and Loving Life All Day, Every Day.
By Diane Calderon. Where can they get this book? I know it's available on Amazon, but are there any other places that people can get this book from?
At this point, it's only available on Amazon. I ended up self-publishing it because it was the easiest way to get the story out.
Right.
Do we have time for me to just add one little thing about the book?
Oh,
Oh,
please,
absolutely.
please.
No,
If I may.
I'm assuming there's a lot more information in the book about things that have happened, but no, please go ahead.
This is important, and Matthew likes me to talk about this. So,
Okay.
the name of the book, people will ask, well, where'd you get that name? Because, you're a grieving mother and you went through an awful lot, and how can you be living and loving life all day, every day?
Mm-hmm.
Here's where the name of the book came from. As I was writing the book, which was definitely
Mm-hmm.
encouraged, nudged, kicked in the butt by Matt to get this book put together, in that process, I was always looking for a title for the book.
Right.
Hundreds of things I wrote down for titles. Nothing seemed to work.
Yeah.
And so I'm fretting about it. So the last person that, helped me put the book together and get it published was a medium named Joseph Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe was remarkable in helping me get this together.
Right.
And I had told Joe, I don't know what I'm titling it. And, when we first started, he said, well, it'll be somewhere in the book. There'll be something in the book that will make that title pop out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I heard from him a little bit later. I don't remember how many days later. He calls me up and he says, hey, the name of your book is in the book. What do you mean? He said, well, I read your book and I reached this point and it made me tear up.
Mm-hmm.
Said, there's that part in the book, and here's the part in the book. The last time I spoke to Matthew, which was earlier in the day that he actually passed, he had called me up to say, hey, I'll be up tomorrow morning. And by the way, I'm applying for a job to be an assistant brewer at a little brew pub here in the area. And I'm filling out the application. And what should I put down as my qualifications? Now, he would do that a lot, because I was pretty good at writing and he wasn't. And I'd say, well, you put down blah, blah, whatever.
Right.
So I gave him whatever my advice was.
Mm-hmm.
So he was supposed to take that application in and, get hired as a part-time assistant to get him through financial needs until he got his contractor's license. He went to that brew pub that night or that afternoon, apparently, before he died, and did not turn in that application. I found it in his paperwork sometime later as we're going through his house and cleaning things up.
Right.
And I looked at his application and I'm like, wow, this is the last thing Matt probably ever wrote before he died, because he was not a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned to the part that said qualifications for the job.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my son in his mid 30s going for an assistant brewing job. He's never done that before at a brew pub, and his qualifications were living and loving life all day, every day.
Wow.
So Joe read that and he said, that's the name of your book, Diane. It's right there. Matthew's words. So that's why it has that title. And this is what Matthew has come through over and over again
Right.
with other mediums is, Mom, I want people to know that life is short. Live it and love it every day. All day, if you can, every day, because it is short.
Yeah.
Enjoy it while you're here, because you never know when you're going to go over on the other side. Hey, and then when you get over there, it's okay.
Yeah.
So that's
And
the
is
title
this
of the book.
is this gentleman here in the frame over your right shoulder, dressed in blue? Is this the man of the hour we're discussing there?
That's the man of the hour. Kind of hard to
That's
tell. with the
Mr. Bluebird on your shoulder.
Wow.
That's it. That's the dog he was walking that day.
And he's dressed all in blue, it looks like, right?
Yeah, he is. Except for his red shoes. He loved the Arizona Cardinals, and I bought him those red shoes to wear when he went to the game. So.
Wow.
He does
And
look, his smile, he does look like he lived and loved life all
I
day.
just want everybody to know before we wrap this up. Marjorie always tells me I have the worst eyesight, and I tell her, you spot things that I can't even
I
spot.
do. I have the worst eyesight.
I'm looking at the same screen that she's looking at, and she sees this picture all on the left-hand side, which is basically out in the background, and I can't even tell what it is. And there you go. She just spots it out. Person with bad eyesight. Yeah, right.
I see the things that matter. I see the things
You
that
do see the
matter.
things that matter, and that's very special about you. But
Especially those bird signs.
That's
Keep
right.
seeing those. I love them.
this sounds like a real wonderful book, and you guys should just run out and buy it.
Amazon.
Amazon.com. And if you don't,
Diane Calderon.
yes, I was going to say, if you can't remember the name of the book, just pull that up, and it's the first
We'll
book that
put
comes
the
up.
link to. We'll put the link.
Yeah, we'll
to
put
her,
we'll,
to her
we'll,
website.
we'll mention it a few times. So, but anyway, Diane.
And I have a link on my website, too. If they go to the website, my name, DianeCalderon.com.
So how do you spell
And
it?
it has a little more information in there.
Right. Diane, right? Calderon.
Correct.
.com.
We'll put the link on our
Yeah,
website.
we'll put the link on our website. We'll do it. Yeah.
I'm so pleased to meet you, Diane. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you for
And,
your generosity of your spirit.
Absolutely. And thank Matthew for us, or we'll just thank it. Thank you, Matthew.
And Sal.
And Sal.
And
Sal.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So take care. And
thank you very much.
Well, that really was fun and and so uplifting and just so inspiring.
she has such a great attitude about
I
this.
love her
Yeah.
attitude.
Yeah. And I mean,
She clearly has gone through all of the whole panoply
if you want to
of
see,
what a mother and a wife would endure.
I think if there's a superstitious thing, but it happens a lot, and it is things happen in threes. You've heard of that. So it's like her husband, her son, and then I think it was a relative, right?
Her brother was at the same time. All of this.
All at the same time, and a lot of people would not handle that very well at all. People would basically, they would kind of crack up a little bit, and they'd have to put themselves together. And I think Diane handled it as well as anybody could handle it.
I think
dealing
she's
with all this.
very impressive and
Yes.
very impressive, formidable woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she has done some really amazing things with all of that tragedy. And I loved the story about how she found the title for her book.
Oh, it's a great story.
I just think that was so. And then when you see the picture behind her, Matt's photograph,
which nobody else could see but you. I just want to say that. Yeah.
He really, in that photograph, he just encapsulates an individual who's living and loving life all day, every day, and just in the most wholesome, lovely way. And I really enjoyed meeting her.
Yes. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have her back in the future.
I would love to hear her further work with with her psychic mediumship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Touch base.
Absolutely.
She's always welcome here.
Yes, absolutely. I just want to remark about all those vocal anomalies that we were listening to. Aside from the screen lighting up like a Christmas, well, not like a Christmas tree, but, well, if it's white lights, just totally all this energy on the screen, and then all of a sudden dying down gradually. Not like, like a car passing by or something with the lights on, and it kind of like you hit the screen, it hits that screen, and basically it's momentary, and then it dims right away. This is, basically it was a gradual dimming. And so it was almost like the energy was just kind of just dying down slowly. But aside from that, all those basically audio anomalies, we are going to isolate and see if we can raise the volume on them to see what they're saying, if they're saying anything. I just think it's amazing that it started happening after, I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we hear something. And then all of a sudden it was just like, I don't want to say rapid fire, but it just kept happening throughout the episode.
And it was
the second
strange. I completely forgot that you had said, I have a feeling we're going to hear some things.
Yeah.
I was focused more on the brightness and the energy that was getting generated there. And then when she started saying, like, he's able to manipulate my ceiling fans, he's the one who installed them, so I guess he would know. Yeah,
we have a ceiling fan right above us, which is really kind of bizarre. And I kept looking at the ceiling fan because it was like, I'm wondering if that thing's turning on, And that actually, that kind of spooked me a little bit, but it didn't.
I have a feeling, and of course I could be really wrong. His energy was really coming very much from her side,
right?
Because none of those sound anomalies occurred while she was speaking,
right?
Only while we were speaking.
Yeah.
And the brightness was only on her screen.
That's pretty interesting, right?
And so I think it was those energetic manipulations were in her domain, in her space.
Well, what I'm going to do is we have a lot of different pieces of equipment, and I have not the normal editing program that we edit the podcast on. I'm going to take all those clips where those sound anomalies happen, going to take them, raise the volume on them, max it out, and see if we can actually listen to it. I'll try to stretch them out too a little bit so that, it might sound a little bit slower. But
I would be really interested to hear that and see what you can do, because I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. And I think I counted about 7 or 8 in the part 2.
Right.
But then when you go back and you listen to the latter part of part 1, there are other interesting things that happen. Yeah.
I think if you listen to it a couple of times, I think you might pick out some more, because it seemed like we were, we did a re-listen, because this was actually edited about a week ago, and we were listening to it again to kind of refresh ourselves with it, and we started noticing other things, and so I'm gonna take all this stuff. We're gonna put it through that sound processor, and we'll see if we get anything out of it. And then we will actually play that for you next week. And next week's episode, we have a special guest from Ohio. He's his name is Mark Paul, and he has this group, which is basically a paranormal discussion group. And they've only been active for maybe about a year, but he's been a good friend of the show, and we're going to have him on, and we're going to talk to him a little bit about it. But he's done some ghost investigations and stuff, and he started this group and is posting some interesting stuff. And it's in Ohio, but basically, we were able to join the group, so he accepted us, and that was great. And so they welcome people from all around the world. So he's going to be on, and he's a wonderful gentleman.
He's quite nice. And
yes.
One thing I really loved was that he listened to our Whitehall Sasquatch Festival episode. And that, obviously, I think that spoke to him because Ohio is really kind of discovering that they have quite a bit of Sasquatch visitations.
I think they have their share of ghostly stuff too.
Oh, yeah, no, he said so.
Yeah, so
he said so on
anyway, he'll be on next week, and I know some people in that group are excited to hear that he's going to be on our show. So there you go. Anyway, so you have any other last minute thoughts of anything?
I look forward to having Ms. Calderon back on our show again. I really do.
We've had some really wonderful guests on. I mean, we've had Carrie Ann has been on. We've had Jennifer Ann.
Yeah.
We've had any other Anns that we've had on.
No.
No, we've had some wonderful guests. We're lining up some more. We have another psychic medium coming up, which is Joe
Giaquinto.
Yes, he's going to be on.
I loved that interview. I could talk to him all day.
Yeah, no, he's wonderful. He's going to be on soon, and that's probably going to be another two-parter. But he's excellent psychic medium, and so that should be a fun show. And we're lining up some other stuff too. So we hope to have some very, very interesting guests.
And we hope that you will write comments and let us know how you're feeling and
yeah, you should do that.
Please, suggestions,
Yeah, suggestions.
Comments, criticisms, recommendations, anything.
Right.
We would love it. We really would. And in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy my apple cider.
I'm going to enjoy my apple cider.
Okay. Want to boop once more?
What, we're booping again?
I want.
Wow, this is a special episode, a double boop. There we go.
Doob the boop.
There we go. Here we go.
We don't often do the doob the boop.
No, we don't. We don't. But the apple cider is really good, and it deserves a double boop.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you. Thank you for
making
it. So, anyway. I want everybody to come back next week for another episode of
Back to Paranormal.
Good night, everybody, and God bless you.
God bless you, and thank you for listening.